Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sindy V King show here. We're excited to actually have a special guest, and he is no stranger in this world when it comes to astrology. And I love some of his stuff on his YouTube channel. If you're into like learning about serial killers and just like personalities as well. He does many things, especially when it comes to relationship. He does prediction in relationship. And today we have a very special topic and is very well known is Rahu and Ketu. What is it doing to us? Is it eating us up? Or if you're totally heartbroken and figuring out what you want to do in relationship or where you should go and where direction you want to go. My channel. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Cindy. It's such an honor to be here, and it's nice to meet you as well. So yeah, I do want to talk about the nodes and the roles that they play in relationships. So basically, synastry, and I'm also going to cover how they affect us in relationships and how what effects they can give if they fall on our personal planets. Like if somebody's north node falls on our Venus, if somebody's south node falls on our Mars, and so on. And just to give a quick overview on the astronomy of the nodes. So the nodes in astrology are technically not planets, but they are mathematical points that are created by the moon's orbit making an intersection with the sun's orbit, the ecliptic. So that's how the nodes are basically formed. And because they do not give off light as well, because the definition of aspect is by sight or protruding out, vision, sight, light, and so on. So they don't really give off the traditional concept of what we perceive to be aspects like trines, squares, but they do form conjunctions. So that's what I'll mainly be talking about if the north node or south node make a conjunction synastry wise. And so the north node, basically what it'll do in a person's chart will amplify something or make you feel very desirous over that person's, whatever they have in their chart, synastry. So the north node, aka Rahu, will amplify something or give more external material results. So it's more about increasing the area of your life, whether it's in your natal chart or in synastry chart. You could actually bring out something in another person. So if somebody's planet is, stuffed away in the 12th house, somebody's Rahu could actually bring it out to life because it's more tangible. It makes things more tangible and futuristic, and can also be kind of over consuming or feel insatiable. And the south node will kind of decrease that area of your life, whether it's natally or in synastry, but also make it more spiritual. So there is a diametrical opposite to the north node and south node, because in mythology, the north node and south node was once a dragon that was severed in half, but it drank the nectar of immortality. So it's still alive, even though it's severed, cut in half. So there's a lot of mystical symbolism here with the north node and south node. But the south node is speculated to represent our past lives, so our karmic past lives. So however it falls in a chart, you can actually bring some kind of familiarity. I can never say that word. Familiarity. Or it could also feel like, wow, I've been here before. So they're both nodes are very insatiable and could actually, they can be considered malefic because they can be insatiable and exciting and also sometimes chaotic or destructive. But they do coexist with their contradictions because they're always in opposite signs. But just like in relationships, you have the male-female dynamic, first house, seventh house dynamic. the secret to relationships is to find the middle ground, whether it's in your first house, seventh house, or even having planets in opposition. So the same thing applies when it comes to the nodes, finding that synastry or finding their commonality there. And if you think about the zodiac signs, even though they're opposite and they're different, but there's a lot of similarities too. Like they'll have the same gender, they'll have the same um what's the word? Modality. Like they'll be most likely the same modality, cardinal, cardinal, fixed, fixed, mutable, mutable. So that's the secret, is finding that commonality. And so the South Node could also represent things where you get separated from, or you decrease in that area of your life, or it could feel spiritual or deflated, or escapism. So that's more past oriented, and North Node is more future oriented. So should I go through the planets? I'll talk about how.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay. So when the North Node, I'll just go in order. If the North Node falls on someone's sun placement, again, however the nodes fall, it's always going to cause some kind of attraction, whether good or bad. But the North Node person will be drawn to that sun person, but the sun is considered to be malefic in a way, or cause some kind of separation. So it's not the best relationship-oriented planet because the sun represents the soul, the ego. It's autonomous and individuality, and Rahu can be very disruptive of that.
Yeah, it's totally true. Does it make a difference if it's homosexual and heterosexual?
No, when it comes to synergy, I apply relationships in all aspects. It doesn't always have to be love,
Mm.
but in any case, it could be a friend, it could be a heterosexual, homosexual, coworker, a relative. So, of course, it does make a difference. But just in general, if I have to generalize it, the North Node on someone's sun can be separating in a way, or because you're like pulling on the person's independence and individuality, and the sun has obligations and needs that it has to fulfill its needs as far as acknowledging the self, or building one's self-confidence and ego and so on. So so it can be hard. So I actually had a bad experience with somebody's North Node falling on my sun, where they were like really obsessing over me. But the nodes, what they also do, they're also considered to be shadow planets, so it can cause a lot of obscurity. So
Yeah.
you may not see the person clearly, or you could actually be very, very misunderstood. And that's with the South Node or the North Node on the
Someone's son.
sun. Yeah, the South Node, it just kind of simply kind of dissolve and drift away from it. The North Node is more like, you're drawing yourself into that person, and you're like totally misunderstanding them. And that sun person will feel misunderstood, understood. Because you think about eclipses, when it's like a new moon, it's like a black shadow. So it causes obscurity, or something that is like vague or unclear. So they kind of represent smoke in a sense, the nodes.
Yeah, which makes totally sense when we have those solar eclipse and stuff like that. When that happens, it's
Mhm.
kind of eclipse the person image in general.
Right. So, and then also, you also want to think about the not only the sun, the planet, but also what house it's in, and what your ascendant is. So if it's ruled by a certain house, then it's going to cause problems for that house lord as well. Like my sun is in Taurus and it's ruled by the first house, so I could be misunderstood for what I do regarding my health, my body, and so on. Very first house things. Like you and I were talking about Kritika, and I had the knife in my hand. I had a synastry bad experience with somebody's north node was on my son, and they totally took that out of context and just totally thought I was like this mean person because I had a knife in my hand. And it's like, no, it was just a Halloween gag. Like, are you serious? Like, so it was just really crazy. And it became very destructive, and it became like a very awkward, uncomfortable situation where I felt totally misunderstood. So that's just one example for Rahu's son. Um, and the person just kept on obsessing over it. I never had a South Node experience, but I would imagine if it's the South Node, then they just kind of quietly the South Node quietly dissipates or separates itself.
Yeah, it dissolves it. It gets like deja vu, like been there, done
Yeah,
that, right?
right.
Boring.
Exactly.
Next.
So in the moon might be better because it can be, moon is considered to be benefic. Some people say it's benefic when it's a waxing moon or malefic in a waning moon. But when it comes to the moon, I haven't done enough research to claim that it makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, we learn about like doing moon in general is the psychology, what is aspecting it as well. If
Mm-hmm.
there's more malefic, obviously their moon is all about Stockholm syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I call it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's comfortable where it's sitting at, great. But if somebody is into negative love, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Secretary.
Mm-hmm. I never
Um,
seen it, but I heard about it.
yeah, so they're into BDSM and that's how they want to be shown love, right? 50
Mm-hmm.
Shades of Grey. There's a reason why it's so popular for women, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
of that mentality, like, I'm hurting inside, but here's a form of nurturing, right? A
Mm-hmm.
form of
Right.
control. So that's how I can see it. Depends on how healthy the moon is.
Absolutely, yeah. And I would say it depends on everything because when it comes to synastry, it's more than just merging of the planets, but you're also bringing in your own problems. Like if you have like, a very intense, you know, Mars Saturn square aspect or something, that I would imagine that being an uncomfortable part of your life. However, whatever houses those planets fall in, you're also bringing that to somebody else, and they're bringing in their issues to you. So, like you said, with the nature of the moon is very sensitive and receptive. So, that person is going to be receptive to your energy. So, if your Mars falls on somebody's moon, and the person natively doesn't have they're not going to be used to that. Like they may feel overwhelmed, like, oh, wow, this person is intense, or the person may be kind of mean or insensitive, you know? So it could potentially do those kind of things. So, and then when it comes to the nodes, the person, let's say the north node, the person can be very drawn to how the mind works. And I've seen, I kind of like that feeling. I feel like it does bring on an attraction thing. Even with the South Node there, where the person can be very reliant and complacent. That's another thing that I noticed that the South Node will do with the person because it brings that I've been here before feeling, or I'm used to this, I'm familiar with this. So the person can be very kind of wallowing or comfortable with that person, so you get really complacent with that person. With the North Node, it feels like, wow, this is so brand new to me. I've never experienced this before. I love the way this person's mind works.
And it depends on like where you are at the stage of your life, right? A lot of people are more attracted to our south node, right? It's our K2.
Hmm.
And so like Ernst was saying or as well, he was saying like, K2 is all about staying at home. Rahu is
Yeah.
the jungle.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard him say that too. Yeah.
Right. And so when he say the jungle, it could be anything. It could be the robbers in the next door. It could be like, oh, there's diamonds outside. Like, K2 is like, we
Yeah.
already know what's in our castle. Let's just stay home. It depends what's more comfortable for you. But ideally, a lot of people are supposed to go to our north node.
Ideally, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of different things. I do believe that's more of a modern evolutionary theory out there, where you're supposed to pursue the North Node and to let things go. That's like the typical thing you hear about the South Node in modern times. But in ancient times, I've heard that you're supposed to balance the two. Um, where you can be basically you just want to be aware of being dangerously complacent with your South Node or dangerously obsessive with your North Node. So you basically want to tame both sides and not go extreme the other way, which may be hard to do because people may have a tendency to be extreme with either side. They're with either side. There have been times where I have just been so frustrated with myself and I just said, forget it. And then when I pursue my North Node, it's uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar. Then it becomes like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me go back to my South Node. So it's then there's that. So you just have to find that middle ground, that healthy balance of merging the two. Just like with relationships, it's that negotiating vibe, that back and forth, and what you're willing to sacrifice. What parts of yourself are you willing to sacrifice for the other person? Which is how relationships work. Like if you're talking to a companion or something like that, and some of your traits may bother them, so you may have to tone it down a little bit, or maybe the other person should reconsider, like, hey, this is who I am. If you can't accept it, then maybe we shouldn't be together. So anyways, I'm getting all deep.
Oh, I love deep. We can go deep. I'm all about deep. Let's get right into Pluto. Since Pluto,
I know, right? Venus conjunct Pluto.
Let's get deep here today.
So anyways, the next planet is Mercury. So if the North Node in somebody's Mercury, then this one, it can be fun. Mercury can be a benefic or malefic depending on the circumstances. So whatever planet's there, because Mercury is very adaptable, similar to the Moon, but not quite. Moon is more receptive. Mercury is more like mimicking whatever is around it. So if Mercury's doing good, if it's surrounded by benefics, then it can be really friendly. It'll be platonic unless Venus is there, which we'll get to. But in general, it could be an exciting, liberating, platonic friendship. And Mercury tends to be a jokester or comical. So you could have a very friendly vibe and you can talk for hours and hours and hours. And, I actually have a friend where their North Node falls on my Mercury, my North Node falls on their Mercury, and we bust up laughing over the stupidest things, very small, little petty things. And we find humor in it and we crack up laughing about it. And it's very platonic, friendly, safe, and we just understand each other. And we also like to, with the nodes on Mercury, you may, start coming up with business ideas or anything that mercurial stuff like planning or playing games, trivia. You may get really invested into those kind of things, or like coming up with a business idea and just communicating and collaborating and sharing ideas and sharing information. You may even have a tendency to even gossip with one another. Even if that's not your nature, but for some reason with that person, you tell all of your business to, oh man, guess what? It could give you those kind of feelings. And the South Node can make you just complacent and used to. The North Node just brings a loudness to it, makes it more external and high. And the South Node is more like quiet, and you get you're just like comfortable, like you said earlier, like it's more at home, it's more inside, it's more internal. And then with the North Node on Venus, now this is like really magnetic for love and relationship. I actually like somebody's North Node on my Venus or vice versa. You could like dangerously fall in love with that person. You could be very drawn to their sense of style, their appearance, how they look, how they dress, even when they're looking kind of bummy or not that well dressed or something. And that person will still feel Like, oh my God, you're so cute, and the other person would be like, really? I'm in my sweats and, my hair is not done or something. And that person will still feel so drawn to you. And
That
I've
is really sweet.
experienced that on both ends.
Okay.
My North Node is on their Venus or the other way around. You can look your absolute worst, and that person will find the beauty in you. So I personally like that placement. Um, the only thing about the South Node is that it can feel quite draining.
Yeah. And, not only the South Node is only draining, but it's a spiritual,
And spiritual, yeah.
right? So, and I don't
Hmm.
know, for Venus per se, it's considered to be a spiritual placement. So it wouldn't be
Hmm.
like a sexual relationship. It's more like, okay, we have a spiritual connection. So they might be opening it up you in a way that is more spiritual. Maybe you never experienced this type of spiritual, I don't know,
Hmm.
religious factor. So they might, when you land in that placement for them, you either open it up for them or you're the one who's exploring that area.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of how it is. The South Node is definitely more of a spiritual connection, and the North Node is more explorative.
Yeah.
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 So, like, I'll give you a quick South Node experience that I had. Somebody's South Node fell right on my Venus, and I had a dream about the person. And in the middle of the dream, the person sent me a text message saying, uh, I feel your energy. What are you doing? And I'm thinking in my head, what in the world? Like, it was like very eerie and strange. Like, whoa, how did she know that I was thinking about her? I didn't want to tell her that I had a dream about her because that would be awkward. But at the same time, thinking this is very strange, But you do have that like past life chemistry. We even talked about that. And this is somebody who doesn't even know anything about astrology, but we've had like deep conversations like, man, like, I wonder who we were to each other in a past life. And in my head, I know this person's chart and she don't know nothing about charts. So I'm secretly thinking, oh man, this is such a South Node moment right here. So it was like awesome to experience that. Like, I feel like either node on somebody's Venus is great. The only thing, if you want to be in a committed relationship though, it's always better to have Rahu doing something because the South Node I noticed will kind of like you will eventually separate. The
Yeah, and yeah, it's not only separate, it fizzle out really quickly
Yeah,
because like I was saying
fizzling out.
too, and as well, I find that it's also past life. So there's some unfinished business
Yeah, unfinished karmas. Yeah.
that you need to do. It's a cause and effect, whatever it is, and it could be get bad or good. It's just like you're connected for a reason because there's unfinished circumstance, and we're duking it out here this lifetime. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of see it. And it's also has to do with when I don't know if this is true when you also did a research. Rahu and Ketu tends to be our ancestor. Rahu and
Oh yeah.
Ketu, right? Rahu
Yes.
and Ketu is
Yeah.
our ancestor. Not only Rahu and Ketu is our ancestor, it's our nurture and nature concept as
Yeah.
well that happens in our home. This is why
Hmm.
we earn these north node and south node. We earned it, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like it wasn't like gifted. It's like you didn't have a choice. Here it is, right?
Yeah, that's very on point. I'm glad you mentioned that because I almost forgot about that. But yeah, it does give those fizzle out tendencies wherever the South Node is, despite how attracted and drawn you are to them. And as far as like the ancestry thing goes, I have been, exploring that and seeing things that are like blowing my mind. And I'm also applying that to, the divisional charts as well, especially the D12. If you want to really get into the crux of your past life and your ancestors, the D12 can be very revealing for that. Um, it's not something that I apply with my clients, but it is a practice that I'm trying to master before I apply it to my public world. So I want to master that before I speak about that publicly. But my discoveries are fascinating. I will say that much.
Okay, whenever
You
you're
know,
ready, well, you have to come back and share us your research. I'm holding you
yeah, yeah,
accountable. I'm holding you
yeah.
accountable.
I can talk about grandparents really briefly, but I'm gonna save that for the end.
Okay, sure.
So the nodes on somebody's Mars can trigger. That's also a planet that can cause separation. Because the nature of Mars is to sever, to cut, to separate. And it could trigger somebody's irritability or frustration and aggression or even awkward competitive vibes. So you don't, if you're in a relationship, any relationship, do not want Mars on somebody's north node or vice versa, because it can amplify those things. You know, the north node is amplifying something, unless you want to channel in a healthy way, like working out or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I would agree. Like if you are working out as a buddy, like a trainer and stuff like that, it might be good to have that because you want that testosterone to get out,
Hmm.
right? You know?
Yeah. Like if you got a male buddy who likes to go to the gym or something, then it could be fantastic for that. Especially if you're lucky enough if it falls in your sixth or vice versa, or even your first, because a lot to do with the body and health and all of that. But in general, it can trigger arguments. And depending on what houses that Mars rules or the house that Mars is in, you can actually figure out what those arguments and disputes can be about. I've experienced that too. You know, so somebody's north node falls on your Mars, you know, it may trigger something, you know, whatever the topic of the house is, you can actually argue about those kind of things. So think about the house too. I think I said that earlier. You think about the house and the houses that that planet rules. And the majority of the planets rule two houses with the exception of the luminaries, sun and moon. Now, Jupiter is another good one to have Rahu on. Because it can amplify and bring an increase to somebody's uh, you know, teachings or morals, or bring out more optimism in your life.
Philosophy, guru,
Mhm.
spiritual.
Yeah, it can make a person be very generous with you, uh, giving you some kind of optimistic viewpoint on things.
Yeah,
So you can really learn a lot from that person, just like Mercury. Mercury is a little bit more playful. Jupiter is more like deep philosophical conversations,
yeah,
and you can gain a lot of wisdom from that person.
yeah,
And the South Node would make it more of a spiritual experience, um, or it could actually feel like you were my guru before. You
yeah.
know, I feel familiar with you. You know, so I've experienced that too. You know, the South Node on somebody's Jupiter, it could feel
Mhm.
real natural with the South Node on somebody's Jupiter,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
comfortable and, you know, safe even.
yeah,
You know, like almost like a repeat of learning something, or you have to relearn it again in this lifetime.
yeah.
And then Saturn, another planet that is malefic. So that could so Rahu on somebody's Saturn can bring out somebody's critical nature, you know, emotionally detachment, or even experience rejection, or even feeling really ignored by that person. So that's a tough one. You don't want somebody's north node on your Saturn or vice versa. You could experience being ignored, or, you know, someone not being considerate of how you feel. They're
Mm,
too much about the practicalities of the world, or feeling like the person is being dismissive of you, or, you know, just kind of like tuning you out, or feeling unseen and unheard by that person because they create walls and boundaries, and it feels like they're tuning you out,
right,
or feel discriminated against.
right. And it feels like a dictatorship too.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a sense
exactly.
of criticism in there. So there's a sense of like a parenting like relationship,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Or it could also make a person feel uncomfortable. You can't really be yourself because they feel like, you know, it feels like everything you do and say is wrong. Jupiter is more like pointing out the things that are good and right, and Saturn is more about pointing out the things that are wrong and negative.
Yeah, it's like the perfectionist and it's
Mhm,
being hypercritical for every little thing. So it's looking what's
mhm.
wrong instead of what's right.
Yeah, exactly. Saturn will look for what's wrong. Jupiter will look for what's right. You know, Jupiter is the plus symbol. Saturn is the negative symbol, the minus symbol. So Rahu will amplify those things in the chart. And, you just, if you're in a relationship, it'll eventually fall apart. So out of everything that we talked about, basically you want the south node on the malefic, Sun, Mars, and Saturn. And it's better to have the north node on your benefics, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Moon. Moon and Mercury in particular are, what's the word I'm looking for?
Neuter?
Circumstantial.
Okay, yeah.
Circumstantial, because they're the most easily influenced planets.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this synastry also work with composition charts as well.
I would say so. I do want to do more research on composition charts in terms of like the nodes, but I would say it makes sense. I would say so.
Yeah.
And even the ascendant, depending if there's a planet there or not, it may not be the biggest influence, but the influence that they do have is that the person can be very attracted to you, or it could feel like if the North Node is there, like they'll be very interested in you. Or it could bring up topics of your physical appearance, your body, your health, basically your swag, your demeanor, your body, everything like that. And the South Node can be the same thing, although it's more spiritual, and it's also one of those things where you get separated from.
Yeah, it's really interesting when we see relationships in general. And I was like, I have noticed like Rahu and Ketu, the activation most marriage and relationship wise is through eclipse. Solar. Yeah. Have you noticed that too?
Yes.
The pattern?
Yes, very much so. Depending on the aspects that the nodes are receiving, I feel like that'll determine if the eclipses are going to be good or bad. I don't like to put the nodes in a box of bad, even though they are lean more towards more of the malefic side. But I've seen eclipses do fantastic things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because also the nodes, depending on the sign that they're in, if their dispositor is doing well, then it can get positive results with the eclipses as well.
Yeah, and this is through, you can do this electional astrology, Muhurta, Prajna, you name it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. We speak the same language, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, and that's totally true. And Saturn, you were saying, is also represent our grandparents as well, our ancestor as well, hardship, right? So do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Well, in terms of parenting, it could be very, very tricky. So you really have to dissect the chart to figure out who is who in your chart.
Yeah.
Because every ascendant is different. So like a real tricky one, for example, would be Taurus ascendants and Libra ascendants.
Interesting.
Because for a Libra ascendant, the moon rules the 10th house.
Yeah.
Foundational astrology, the 10th house is father. If you're a Libra ascendant, the moon is a ruler of your 10th house, and the moon represents the mother. So that would be one of those cases where you would literally have to ask the client, what was your mother like? What was your father like? Or for a Taurus ascendant, sun represents father, but sun rules the 4th house, and the 4th house represents the mother. So again, that's one of those instances where you have to ask the client, what were your parents like? How would you describe your parents? And the dispositors can also be very revealing too. So if your sun's in Taurus, you want to look at Venus. If your sun is in Gemini, then you want to look at the condition of Mercury, can give you results of what your father was like. Or if moon is in Aries, or you want to look at Mars. Now here's another thing that I learned from Ernst. I don't know if you learned this from him too, is that in his book, he mentions that Mars can also represent the mother. So, because when we are inside the mother's womb, we feel her physical movements. And that's what Mars represents, physical movement. It also represents penetration, cutting, we're coming into the world. So Mars can also represent the mother. So basically he's saying that the moon represents the feminine side of the mother and Mars represents the masculine side of the mother. And then Venus is supposed to represent the father's DNA. So it's like the nurturing side of the father. So, and I have found that to be true. So when I look at father, I look at Sun and Venus, boom, automatically. And the 10th Lord, depending on the ascendant. Mother, I look at the moon, Mars, the 4th house Lord, depending on the ascendant as well. Now, when it comes to grandparents, this is interesting. Grandparents can also be seen from your 1st and 7th house. Yeah. So I don't know. So you're familiar with derivative houses, right?
Yeah.
So the 7th house represents the mother's mother because it's 4th from the 4th house.
Yeah.
So it's your maternal grandmother, your 7th house. And it's also your paternal grandfather. So it's 10th because 7th house is 10th from the 10th house. So we jokingly say amongst astrology friends of mine, we jokingly say we marry our grandparents from both sides of the family. So if you're watching this and this is like your first time hearing this, play with that idea. Play with, think about what your grandparents' life was like, or even look at their physical body. Think about what they look like and merge the two. Like it's supposed to be like a mixture of one grandparent on one side and one grandparent on the other side. And it eerily works. It's a little creepy sometimes and kind of strange, but it does work. And the 1st house represents your mother's father and your father's mother. So your maternal grandfather and your paternal grandmother. Yeah, that's right. And, that's you. So you're like a combination of one grandparent and the other grandparent from the other side of the family. And I have found that to be very, very true as well. And even start looking into their charts. Even if you don't have the time, do your best trying to figure it out, or just look at their planetary alignment. And it eerily works. It's so strange. Like, in my case, I'm a Leo ascendant, therefore I have Aquarius in my descendant. My grandmother, she's a moon Aquarius, and my grandfather on my dad's side, he has like a huge stellium in Aquarius. And they even look like Aquarius. They both have that Saturn look. They're both slim and tall, or, they have that Saturn look. And then I'm a Leo ascendant and keep in mind that my ascendant ruler is in Taurus. So my grandmother is a moon Leo. I don't know her ascendant, but she's a moon Leo and a sun Taurus. And we have the same birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I noticed that, I kind of look like her.
Oh, wow.
And then my grandfather on my mom's side, he has some Leo stuff going on. So it's very strange, like how astrology works, and then you can get real in depth, like where's your 7th house Lord, what house it's in, is it forming some type of yoga, is it in conjunction with another planet, that planet could rule your 3rd house. So you may marry somebody who's like your sibling, or whether it's by what they look like, what the personality is like. You can get very, very deep with acknowledging those things.
Yeah. And not only that, you're able to make predictions of what their spouse is going to be like based on looking at the 7th house too, because like you were saying, the DNA has got to be matching in order to say, yes, our ancestors saying, yes, this works, right? Or it doesn't work, right?
Right.
And so, which is really fascinating when you said that. And not only on top of that, I know that you study under urns as well. And you were saying Mars, well, this is all from Jeremy astrology. Mars tends to be the protectors. The woman tends to be in the home protecting the child. That's the job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
And Venus tends to be the man part because it represents the DNA, right? The DNA of the sperm, right?
Exactly.
So that being said, it also a ruling of money and cars. There's a reason why cars are she.
Yeah, exactly.
Her. You know,
Yeah,
there's a reason
exactly.
why, right? So, and I noticed that not only that, but if you're having money problem, health problem, it's a Venus problem.
Yeah,
It's a Venus problem
definitely.
that's
Yeah.
happening in the chart. So yeah, and I noticed there's a few things that you also mentioned as well. The moon and the sun, those are the eggs and the sperm. In
Right.
a birth chart, you can know that if they're in harmony or not in harmony at birth,
Hmm.
reception, like in reception
Hmm.
in general. And when
Hmm.
you see that, that's how they're going to either operate in general. Either they feel divided as a person, their heart and their head is in two different directions. Are they in harmony in this world? This is just the
Right.
normal psychology in general. So maybe their heart's going to say something, but their head's going to be in a different direction. There's a reason why the moon is when it's landing in a Scorpio, it's in the fall for a reason,
Right.
right? The same
Hmm.
reason why Venus in Virgo, it's not in a good situation either. It's then also in the fall as well, right? Who wants to be
Hmm.
criticized in love, right?
Exactly.
Who does, right?
Right.
Unless there's something in this harmony that this is how I see in charts and couples and relationship. If your Venus is not in a healthy position, you can get it in balance, right? You got to put some work into it. You got to put some Saturn into it, right? There's a
Mhm.
reason why Venus and Saturn opposition is in a good position for a reason, because if you put in the hard work, it pays off, right? But
Yeah.
Saturn and Venus conjunction, that's hardship. That's
Yeah.
negative love, right? Right. And
Yeah.
and so you sometime either find a partner who has Sun and Venus in Virgo.
Say that again. Sun, Venus, and
In
Virgo.
Virgo. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or like a combination. Because their Venus is hurting. And the other person's Venus
Mhm.
hurting. So are we trying to heal each other? Right. And then both of
Yeah.
those combination, right? What are we trying to do? But we should be doing our own healing. That's the secret,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Instead of trying to be parenting each other. So I don't know if you notice those type of combination when Venus is in this fall. Their Venus is also in their fall as well.
Yeah. I've kind of noticed that too. I got a client who had a debilitated Venus,
Yeah.
and definitely self worth issues. Felt very criticized by her father, like very anal in particular about things. And I don't remember where her Saturn was, but her Venus was definitely hurt, and she had to go through a lot of healing processes. And it was Venus in the 12th conjunct Pluto. She was a part of that Uranus Pluto generation in the 60s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I think her father was, abusive, not physically, but just verbally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he can't do anything right, and very petty small things, criticizing her about. And that was her ascendant ruler too. So even with the way she looks, her appearance, her everything. So she would always stay in hiding because she never felt pretty enough. That's like a debilitated Venus in the 12.
Yeah. And it's self-worth and also self-sabotaging too.
Right. Right. And then you got to conjunct with these wacky outer planets that we're still learning and discovering about. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Uranus makes things unusual and strange as well.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so when you see those type of combination, it's end of the day, it's like, what is the healing part of Venus? Venus likes being Pisces, even though it's like drunken on love, but that's healing, right?
Hmm.
So big remedy, easy remedy is like go and hang out by water, go and swim, go be near water, go listen to water. That will calm down Venus quite a bit to help out with
Yeah.
Venus, right? And self-love, eat nurturing food, don't eat garbage.
I was just about to say that, like, the best way to heal your Venus is to eat nutritious food. So instead of candy, you would want to eat fruit.
Yeah,
Like food that tastes good, but it's still healthy.
yeah. And Venus is it's bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bitter. So the taste is bitter. It's not like
Mhm.
Jupiter is it's sweet. That's
Mhm.
Jupiter, right? So if you want to
Yeah.
heal Venus, you're going to do some sour stuff, like So
Hmm.
it could be a lemon water to start off with the day, and
Hmm.
that's how you can worship Venus as well. But Venus is as well as sleeping, taking care of your sleep, taking care of your hormones. Venus, this is all Venus stuff, food, cooking, how do you dress yourself? How do you speak to yourself? How do you write to yourself? This is all Venus stuff,
Right.
right? I don't know anything else this Venus would represent. Oh, candles. Candles also Venus.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned that. I literally just bought some candles today.
Oh, I have a stack of them. You can put it in southwest, I believe, and then you can light it there. That's one remedy of it, just to offset
Let
some
me
of the
write
negative.
that down. Southwest.
This is Vasu. This is Vasu remedy, right?
Yeah.
You can always do Venus remedy as well. There's lots of mantras out there to help out with Venus as well. But to
Yeah.
start off with Venus, it's like, how do you dress yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you receive love with yourself? It's just like unconditioning yourself. That's it when it comes to
Yeah.
Venus, right? And you want to care for those.
What would you say to a client who has a difficult relationship with Venus and Saturn, whether it's you have it natally or in synastry?
Synastry is different. So synastry, I would say it's a structured relationship. And I
Mhm.
found that Mercury, there's a reason why Mercury allow cancellation to a lot of the yogas. And if you have a
Mhm.
positive thing. So I would say like doing transactional analysis, hire a speaking coach that can create structures for yourself that you can express yourself and how to do it.
Mhm.
Emotional inventory is going to be very helpful for vocabulary. So that is a good remedy for that to start off with. Saturn and Venus conjunction, that is a very challenging one for individual because there's one great thing about it. No matter how hard the work is, they will say no problem. That's Saturn
Mhm.
and Venus, right?
Mhm.
Saturn and Venus in general wants that hardship, but it doesn't see the reward. So, in other words, a remedy for that is rewarding yourself for hard work and acknowledging those hard work in difficult times. And
Yeah.
any projects that you take on is stop and celebrate,
Yeah. That's
right?
very true. Yeah.
So Saturn wants structure, right? So you're going to get
Mhm.
reward when you finish here. Here's your end goal, right?
Mhm.
It's like you want to reward the positive thing. When things are negative, even though Saturn is there, it wants to reward the negative thing. No, we're going to be rewarding just the positive things. That is reversing the psychology, what is hardship is. You don't have to earn love, right?
Right.
That's what it is. That's what Saturn and Venus. I want to earn love. No, no, no. You're rewarded because you did good work, right? This is a good harvest day that you did. And here's a wonderful work. So that is one thing. But again, it's all about communication and structuring the communication and how we do this in a relationship and within ourselves and practicing these things, right? Because at the end of the day, I think you and I can agree a lot of our charts tend to project onto our partner anyways.
Right. Yeah.
So why continue on the tradition? Why we continue on this ancestor stuff that we don't need to?
Exactly. That's another thing I'm glad you brought up because sometimes in our chart, we do inherit our parents and grandparents' personality traits. And sometimes you'll see it in their planetary alignment. So it's up to you to use your free will to break that, you know, ancestral curse. Or I say that in quotes, I don't like to call things a curse, but, not to repeat those repetitive, toxic patterns.
Yeah.
And so I'm very aware of that. So I always, let a person know to step out of that, pattern. You know,
Yeah.
just because your parents did that or your grandparents did that doesn't mean you have to continue the cycle, the vicious cycle. If it's a bad one, don't continue it.
Yeah, and it's important to not only recognize Pluto is always going to be there, Rahu is going to always be there, Saturn is always going to be there, right?
Mhm.
How do we offset some of these bad times when it does arise, like when we go into these dasha or bhuti, and when this period comes into our life, how do we get these support, right? We're not going to be crumbling, and nobody needs to actually feel like they're so much in pain that life is over. It's not true. This is just part of the story that needs to unfold, but we can do it in a healthy way to do it. And there was many support, there's many research in this area, and you're part of the journey as well, because you're helping a lot of people in general about love and relationship and understanding where it's coming from, because that's where it has to start, is being
Yeah.
conscious about it, right?
Right.
Because you have to step outside of ourselves, get out of the castle, get into the jungle and find out what is it really is the issue, right? Because if
Yeah.
we're not, then it's a problem. And I always say this on my channel, there's three things that we want in this life: somebody to love, something to do, something to look forward to, right? That's our most of astrologer reading is all about. And at the end of the day, right? We cover Rahu, cover Venus, and we cover Ketu as well in the process, right? Rahu and Ketu, right? Something to do, something to love, and something to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
That's all we really look for in this lifetime, even with a partner or not in a partner. What's really important, if you have a Venus that is like in its fall, you tend to look for only looks, just
Mhm.
looks, right?
Mhm.
And so, and if you have Venus something like in Libra, then you're looking for like, how's your family? What's your family's like, right? But the
Yeah.
higher type of Venus is like, are you intelligent? Do you have this, that? Like, are you financially successful? That's a different type of Venus. People love
Right.
differently, right? But
Right.
how do we get into the longevity of the relationship? Instead of trying to be in a relationship where we're trying to heal ourselves or each other's, that's not projecting on each other. That's not really a good relationship. It's going to fall apart because you didn't go outside your comfort zone and get the healing. And your partner shouldn't be your therapist, period.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
True. Yeah. 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 I
R-
agree with that. You should definitely heal within yourself before you pursue a brand new relationship, because then you're going to be wanting them to heal you when it's not their job to heal you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, like I noticed quite a bit like the reverse role of the masculine as well that happened. And the man and the woman are completely reversed as well. Is it the 2 and 12 sign? So that means that where the moon's position is, it tends don't last because there's a few reasons why it doesn't last, because external factors are being involved. So sometimes the support isn't there,
Are you
right?
talking about in synastry, somebody's planets falling
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
what,
2. Yeah, 2
like
and
hemming the moon?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that could be a factor. But what we look at, I don't know if you spend a lot of time, but I look at the Chandra Lagna, right? So I
Mm,
kind of look in that and see the psychology. Are they going to feel fulfilled with themselves?
yeah. I'll look at that chart too sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I noticed that makes a big difference. Even if you had a partner, are you going to feel fulfilled? That's the
Right.
question, right? Are you not going to feel fulfilled? Like, what are you going to do in that process if you don't fulfill? At the end of the day, if you can't make yourself happy, why is your partner is responsible to make you happy?
Right. Hmm.
You know, my
Right.
Jupiter is not going to make you happy. It's you, you know what I mean? You understand? It's like,
Yeah.
my exalted Mars is not going to make you happy. Like, what are you going to do about it, right?
Right. Right.
So it's just being responsible for our own well-being, and astrology is just one tool to help us have that symmetry and make that activation, even though we are granted based on transit wise, right?
Hmm.
It does it last afterwards.
Yeah. I was just talking to an astrology buddy of mine because Jupiter is actually doing wonders for my Venus right now. But I'm thinking in my head, it's not gonna last though. But it does feel good now in the moment. So I'm doing, I'm trying to do the most with it in the moment. You know.
Right.
But it's also inspiring me to do my best when it does leave Pisces and go somewhere else.
Right. So this is what it is. I'm an astrologer myself, and so are you. So we go through our goods and bads as well, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what we can do about it is look at it in the future events and be like, you know what? There's some stuff like hardships coming up, what can I do about it? Who can I get
Yeah.
support? I'm not going to sit here and wait around for it, right? You can might as well start prepping for it, right? If you can
Right.
see it, right? And
Yeah.
then by the time it hits you, it's not going to be like kaboom,
Yeah. Right.
surprise, right? It's not
Yeah.
gonna, it's not, it doesn't gonna, the planet's not there to shut the door in the back of your bum, but it's there, it's there to like get you to point A to point B. That's why we have these transits, and this is why we have
Yeah.
these dashas and these periods. And there's no such thing as perfect birth chart in general. If anybody's is
Right.
watching this, and we select our partner to learn a certain lesson, but there's some of them you can avoid. Let me tell
Right.
you that.
And there's no perfect synergy either. That's another thing that's important to be aware of, because I've been there, when I was a newbie in the astrology community, like combing through the trend is like looking for dates like, oh, I want to date a girl that's born in April 1993 or something like that. And then it's like, oh, damn, they're causing a Mars square to my Mercury. I don't like that, So you can't escape it. But I mean, it does help, of course, to know this stuff so you can avoid things that you just absolutely cannot deal with. And another thing about the nodes, since we make, this video is mainly about the nodes, it'll help you keep up with what kind of generation you feel more a part of. Like that's something I notice. Like with the generational planets or the nodes, that's something I'm aware of. Like, oh, that's why I click with older people or younger people. Because then you'll realize like, oh, they're setting this over here and not bothering my son, so that's why I gel with them, versus like, oh, I can't stand that generation. And then when you look at the outer planet, you'll understand why, like, oh, that's why I can't deal with those people, because they're part of a generation where their outer planets are causing craziness in your own chart,
Yeah.
whether it's craziness or an annoyance or an irritability. And then with the outer planets in synastry, it can be very revealing as to why you feel a certain way, good or bad.
Yeah, that's absolutely totally true. And, we can take two perfect people and put them together and they bring out each other's poison too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I have seen that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like we want to make sure that the more that you take care of your own chart,
Mm-hmm.
the better you are finding a mate and a
Yeah.
long-term partner. If
Yeah.
that's your goal.
I
That's
like that.
because it doesn't matter what the other person is going through, the other person. But if you take care of your own chart, you take care of the Venus part, you take care of your own psychology, you take care of that Jupiter part, everything else and Rahu and Ketu will work itself always,
Yeah.
period.
I like that. I
Right.
like that.
So that's why I strongly believe that doing synastry is important. I do agree with that because you want to know if this is marriage, this is worth the marriage. And I always say in my channel, go through the 4 season,
Yeah.
right? If you
Yeah.
can get through the harvest day and you can get through manifesting and cultivating, then you're going to be okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why they call it the 3-year itch or the 7-year itch for a reason.
Yeah. That's so
Saturn is doing something there.
right.
Saturn is
Mhm.
want to teach us something. And what is it that you're not noticing? Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
how I kind of see it. But I know that you're working on some of the courses right now. Do you want to share a little bit about your courses that you might be working on now or in the future or your vision? Because this is
Yeah.
manifesting, this is cultivating right
Yeah.
now. We're doing this.
Well, my goal is to create courses. A lot of them will be free on YouTube. They're more beginner friendly, so I would really love to teach foundational astrology, and I feel like it'll be be useful and really understand the planets, the signs, the houses, and, you know, where does all this stuff come from? Why are the signs are what they are? Um, you know, and also make people be open-minded to the fact that we're not just one zodiac sign, especially for newbies or beginners. And then it'll help you, be able to understand predictive techniques as well. And because you can't, take a course in calculus before you take algebra. You know what I mean? You can't, try to, go to university before you finish high school. You have to learn astrology step by step and take your time. Don't rush trying to figure out the future. Understand Aries. Even if you don't have any planets there, learn about it, study it. Why is it ruled by Mars? Why is it a male sign? Learn those little things, and then you'll be able to learn the advanced stuff. Like whether it's predictive techniques, whether you're trying to learn Vedic astrology, whether you're trying to learn Hellenistic astrology, it'll just help you understand the nature of astrology as a whole. So that's why I really want to teach foundational astrology, and maybe give those classes out for free, like beginner stuff, the ABC, the 1, 2, 3s, and then any courses that I would sell would be more for the advanced. Like, okay, I'm graduated from this part of astrology. I want to learn how to do perfections. I want to learn how to do zodiacal release. I want to learn Vedic astrology. I want to learn aspects and conjunctions.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So that being said, I want to conclude our connection today, and it was so lovely meeting you, and I think you're going to do such wonderful work. And if you're totally interested and you're listening to me up to this point and totally want to check him out, he has a wonderful YouTube, and then I'll link every information that he has about courses and how to get in contact with him. I will link that down in the description below. Otherwise, do you have any wisdom of words for those who are single, sad, brokenhearted, and just really sad? What would you say to them right now?
I would say definitely try to develop your self-worth, especially now with this Venus retrograde going on right now, as the nature of Venus is beauty, love, and unifying. So, and retrograde motion just means to just go within. And when the planet goes retrograde, it's much closer to the earth. So love really is in the air these days. And practice positive mantras, like speak out the things that you want in life, like speak out positive words, positive affirmations. So, and repeat it over and over again, even if you feel silly saying it. But, practice that. That way you'll start to believe the things that you say. So if love is what you want in your life, then put it out there. Say that I am worthy of love. Say that to yourself and say it out loud. Write it down 100 times if you have to. So that would be my advice for the world.
That was so beautiful. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye now.
Bye.